Well, hello, everybody. It is wonderful to be here with you. It's been a bit, and I am pleased to offer today the chalice lighting written by Jamie Yandel as Carolyn lights the chalice for us. We light this chalice for the quiet truths we carry and for the futures we're brave enough to write. In this circle, we honor the courage it takes to live openly, the softness that sustains us, and the joy and power that grow when we gather. As the chalice glows, may we feel steadiness rise in us. May we trust that our becoming messy, radiant, unfolding, wholly belongs to us. I want to share with you a true story. This is a story that happened when I was in middle school. So I switched schools just as seventh grade was getting started, which I'd like to say, in my personal experience, is the absolute worst time you can possibly switch schools. I moved from a school district in Minnesota that was quite rural, and I moved to a fancy private school in the urban area of Minneapolis. This was a big culture shock for me. And one of the things I learned pretty quickly was that in this new school, you really needed to have a pair of Guess jeans. This was the 1980s. I date myself. Guess jeans were all the rage, and you kind of had to have one, or you were considered to be nobody. So I begged my parents to buy me a pair, and eventually they did. The thing about these jeans, if you lived through that era, some of us did, you might recall there were a few years where jeans were made with zippers at the ankle that you could zip up or down, maybe about like 6 inches, not too far, little ankle zip style. I was so excited to have these jeans. However, the first day I wore them to school, I realized I was not sure whether I should zip the ankle zipper or unzip it. I did not know. And it was important for me to know because if I got it wrong, it would be just the worst. So I thought about it and I decided to go for a compromise position of zipping the ankle zipper halfway. I got to school, went through the day, and then a kid in the lunch line said to me, Laura, did you know your ankle zippers are only zipped halfway? Oh, the mortification, people. I'm telling you this story in a funny way. It is funny to me in retrospect, but at the time, it was total catastrophic mortification. Today, of course, if someone tried to pull that on me, I'd be like, what are you even talking about? Like, why do you even care? But at the time, it just felt heartbreaking, like I did not belong. I wish that I had had some Unitarian Universalist friends back then to support me, because one thing I know about UU tweens and teens is that they tend to be way nicer to each other than most kids are at that challenging age. In fact, one of my very favorite Unitarian Universalist teachings comes from some teenagers I met at the UU congregation I served in Fairfax, Virginia. This teaching is quite simple, and it goes like this. Don't yuck my yum. Don't yuck my yum. Now, some of you might know this phrase already, but if this is the first time you're hearing it, let me tell you what it means. It means if I like something, please do not tell me that it's weird or not cool or cringe. Like, if I want to zip my ankle zippers halfway, don't yuck my yum. Just let me like what I like, and I will let you like what you like, and we all get to be ourselves, and it's just okay. Of course, there is an applied congregational meaning as well. Don't yuck my yum is actually a quick way to express one of the core values in our own fellowship covenant. That value is acceptance. Our covenant literally says we promise to, and I'm going to quote, we promise to accept the rights of others, to express opinions, and to encourage actions that may differ from my own. Don't yuck my yum. So that's what I want to leave you with for now. But we're going to come back to this idea later on.
Today's reading is by the American poet Carolyn Hocht, or Hot, H-A-U-G-H-T, you get to pick, who grew up and raised her family in Oklahoma. It's titled, God Says Yes to Me. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said, yes. I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said, it sure is. I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish, and she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes. She said, you can do just exactly what you want to. Thanks, God, I said. And is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters? Sweet cakes, God said. Who knows where she picked that up? What I'm telling you is yes, yes, yes.
My mom loved rich desserts like shortcake, Dove bars, and her very, very favorite, pecan pie. I remember that she would just savor the first bite of pecan pie with so much delight. And yet, she always felt guilty when she ate dessert, like she was doing something wrong. Right after that first delicious bite, I remember she used to roll her eyes and say, only about 1,000 calories. That was her phrase, only about 1,000 calories. Mom struggled with her weight in a culture that rewarded women for being thin. And I get why she felt ambivalent about allowing herself the so-called guilty pleasure of a slice of pie or an ice cream bar. As we start digging into this topic of guilty pleasures, I do want to pause and clarify something. When I say guilty pleasures, I'm talking about things that you find enjoyable and that are basically harmless to you. A guilty pleasure, as I'm going to talk about it today, is not something that seriously hurts you or the people around you. And so, for example, to clarify, if someone is struggling with addiction to alcohol or another substance, I would not call that a guilty pleasure. I would call that a serious life-threatening issue. And an appropriate response to it would be to support that person in getting treatment so they could stop harming themselves and the people around them. So that, just want to clarify that right up front. But going back to my mom's case, as I recall, that was something quite different. Occasional delicious desserts that, in the opinion of her doctor, did not really have a major impact on her health. And so looking back, gosh, I just wish that she could have stopped beating herself up and just enjoyed something that brought her so much pleasure. Thinking about my own experience, I can see a similar dynamic in myself around guilty pleasures, not with food, that's not really my issue, but with my reading habits, you bet. Because here's the thing, I was an English major in college. I used to love reading George Eliot, Charles Dickens, Dostoevsky, Virginia Woolf, even Chaucer in the original Middle English. So cool, y'all. It's so cool. I even wrote my senior thesis on Henry James, who, if you know, is one of the most literary highbrow novelists in history. But these days, you know what? I almost never read serious novels. I can't seem to make myself do it. I honestly don't really want to. These days, reading serious literature feels like, oh, such a slog. It's energy depleting. It is not a way to recharge. Instead, I'm going to tell you that one of my favorite genres these days is urban fantasy. I'm serious. Give me a shape-shifting werewolf adventure story, and I am so here for it. And I used to say fun books like that were my guilty pleasures. I would say that guilty pleasures, because just as my mom used to feel guilty about eating dessert, I used to feel guilty for straying so far from my former literary tastes. Like, I don't know, I was somehow doing something wrong or disappointing my old professors, not that they even knew, or being too frivolous or something like that. I don't even know. But here's what I do know today. Guilty pleasures help us meet soul deep needs. They help us meet the needs of our souls, especially now when we are trying so hard to respond to all the chaos and destruction around us. I'll share a story to explain what I mean. I once did some work in my private practice with someone I will call Jean, and I have changed all the details to protect Jean's privacy, but the essence of the story is true. So Jean showed up one day to a session feeling kind of guilty because she had been obsessing about redecorating her living room. And she had spent hours that week searching online for just the right throw pillow. Now, Jean had plenty of things on her plate. She was a professional with serious responsibilities at work. Her family also needed a lot of her attention. She cared a lot about the state of our country and our planet. And in this session, she really started to beat herself up that with so many urgent issues clamoring for her time and her energy, she was wasting all this time shopping for throw pillows. How could she be so frivolous? But what if all this throw pillow shopping was not the waste of time it appeared to be on the surface? What I've learned over time is that if you're feeling embarrassed and self-critical with about a seemingly frivolous activity that isn't really hurting anybody, but is occupying a lot of your attention, this is a cue to dig deeper, to discover the underlying meaning of an apparently frivolous, trivial, silly, guilty pleasure. Working with this hypothesis, my client and I delved into what it would mean for her to find that just right throw pillow for her living room. I asked her, what would it be like for her if she found that perfect pillow? She sat quietly for a minute or so, and then she started talking. She said, oh, it would just make the room feel so good. Like everything in that room went together. Like everything was peaceful and restful and complete. And then she said, I guess I would feel that way too. Like I could rest. And then tears came to her eyes. She said, I've just been so tired. It's all so much these days. It feels like everybody needs me, and sometimes I just need to sit and rest. There it was. That throw pillow was not a small thing after all. It wasn't silly. It embodied Jean's weariness, her desire for peace and rest, and her hope that she could have those things in her life, along with all her responsibilities. Soul deep needs. Another example, talking with someone the other day, and here again, I've disguised all the details so their privacy is safe. I asked what was new in their life talking with this person, and they told me they were a little shy about it, but they told me they and their young kids had adopted a pet turtle. And they've been learning all about turtle care, like what the turtles need to eat and how to make this turtle's home feel very cozy for them. And this person I was talking to said it was just very pleasant to spend some time bonding with the turtle. They were kind of embarrassed about how into the turtle they were. And they said, I know it's silly. But, I don't think it's silly. The smile on their face as they spoke of this little turtle was so sweet. It was real. And the care they were putting in to keep this new animal family member safe and well, it was touching. It wasn't silly at all. It was genuine. It was real. And so thinking about these not so little moments has helped me realize it's to some extent the same for me too. These novels that I like to read, what I used to call my guilty pleasure reading, they feed me on a soul deep level too. They give me stories about adventure and courage and faithful friends and repairing painful rifts and a joyful, well-deserved happy ending, which is exactly what my soul longs for these days. Not just for me, but for everyone. In spite of all the confusion and pain in our world, that's what I want. I want some joy. So today, I believe the things that so many of us call guilty pleasures, no matter how small and silly they might seem, have actually come into our lives to fulfill some measure of our soul's yearnings for beauty, for peace, for delight, and deep joy. Would you try this idea on with me for just a minute? If you're willing, I invite you to take a moment, it won't be long, and close your eyes. And think of something small in your life that brings you joy, but you feel like it's so silly, you might be embarrassed to tell someone about it. Something really small and really silly that brings you joy. Let's just take a few breaths in silence so that you can think of what that might be for you. Okay, so now I have something to tell you. The word silly, our English word silly, it comes from a German word, selig. And that German word means blessed. So what if that silly small thing in your life is actually a sacred blessing? I'm going to invite you to just take a few more breaths in silence and sit with that idea, that silly thing. is a sacred blessing. So I'll invite you now to come back and gently open your eyes. What if that's true? What if our guilty pleasures are actually sacred gifts to nourish our spirits? What if they're blessings? What if we don't have to be embarrassed? What if we could just let ourselves be blessed by what brings us joy? And in this moment in our country, I mean, what even are we struggling for, if not for everyone's right, not just to survive and endure, but to experience the blessings of joy and delight, to have not just bread, but roses, as that old suffrage song puts it, bread and roses, to have a beautiful, joyful life. Isn't that what we want for everyone? So may this be so for you and for the ones you love and for all people and all beings, for everyone. May it be so. Amen.